Today, I am talking about Jesus walking on the water and why one disciple made what I believe to be one of the most audacious requests in the whole Bible. Matthew 14:24-29 says this: "Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came towards them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, 'It's a ghost!' But Jesus spoke to them at once and said, 'Don't be afraid. Take courage. I am here.' And then Peter called to him, 'Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water.' 'Yes, come,' Jesus said." Now, I know that this is a popular story, one that often gets associated with the faith talk, especially when we look a little bit further in the story and we see Peter actually walking on water, taking a few steps, and then starts to sink. What I want to point out here is what I believe to be one of the most ridiculous requests in the Bible, and what I believe is the heart behind that request. Here's the scenario. The 12 disciples are out in the water, they're in a boat, and there's a storm. Out of nowhere, at 3 in the morning to be precise, Jesus is spotted walking on the water towards them. Now the 12 guys get properly freaked out and yell, "It's a ghost!" Jesus tries to calm them down, and then Peter speaks up. And this is where I believe we find one of the most audacious requests in the whole of the Bible. Peter says to Jesus, "If it's really you, tell me to come to you by walking on the water." Like, it seems crazy, right? Like, if you think it's inside the realm of possibility that this could, in fact, be a ghost walking on the water, why couldn't a ghost say the same thing? So then why did Peter ask it? Well, I believe that in order to actually understand this story here, Matthew 14, we actually need to jump back to Matthew 10. Matthew 10 says this, verse 1, "Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every disease and sickness." Then it names each of the disciples and he tells them where to go. And then it carries back over in verse 7 and 8. And verse 7 and 8 says this: "As you go, proclaim this message. The kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, so freely give." I'm sorry, how does this relate to Peter walking on water? See, up until Matthew 10, Jesus is the one who is proclaiming the message that the kingdom of heaven is near. He is the one who's healing the sick and raising the dead. He's cleansing the lepers and driving out demons. But now he was giving the disciples the authority to do the exact same thing that he had been doing. So now let's go back to Matthew 14, to Peter's audacious request. "Jesus, if it's really you, tell me to come to you by walking on the water." See, Peter understood what Jesus was inviting them into back in Matthew 10. Jesus was inviting the disciples to do the exact same things that he had been doing. Jesus was saying, everything that I'm doing, you guys get to do. So here's Peter in a boat and Jesus is walking on the water and he remembers the invitation. Everything that I do, you get to do. So Peter knows if it actually is Jesus, that Jesus will invite him to come out on the water towards them, because anything Jesus does, he gets to do. And here is the takeaway. As you're reading through the Bible and you see Jesus doing what John Wimber, one of the founders of the Vineyard Church, used to call the stuff, and you say to yourself, man, wouldn't it be awesome if God would use me to do that same stuff that Jesus was doing? Healing the sick, raising the dead, cleansing the lepers, and driving out demons. Take a risk and make an audacious request. Say to God, I want to do the same stuff that you're doing. In John 14:12, Jesus says this huge statement. He says, "I tell you the truth. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done and even greater, because I am going to be with the Father." Anyone. So let's make some audacious requests and take some risks. Proclaim that the kingdom of heaven is near and demonstrate it to a world that is hungry for it.